Welcome to Turning Moments into Movements, where each week we explore simple but powerful wellbeing tips to help you live a balanced and fulfilling life. My name's Leanne Ross, your host and the founder and coach of my business, Happyluya, and I will be taking you through today's 15 minutes of insight and inspiration. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. This week's episode is actually all about boundaries, and an incident just literally happened to me about 30 minutes ago, and it really made me want to come on and just do an episode on this whilst it was sort of in effect hot off the press. So with boundaries is something that I've really struggled with for quite a long time. I'm generally, not specifically an assertive person. Being assertive is something that I've had to work on quite frequently throughout my career. It's not something that comes naturally to me in most situations. So it is a skill set that I have really worked on and developed throughout my years in the workplace and throughout my personal life as well. Now, being assertive and being boundaried does tend to come hand in hand. And what you find is people who struggle to be assertive often struggle to be boundaried as well. And what I've found, certainly from my experience and having spoken to other people, there's a number of different reasons on why people struggle to put boundaries in place. Number one reason that generally comes up the most is people pleasing. So people pleasing is, it does have a negative connotation attached to it because it's something that people frequently use. They say, I'm a people pleaser, so therefore I said yes when I really wanted to say no. I'm a people pleaser, so I therefore worked overtime in my job when I didn't really have the time to. I had to cancel my plans. So quite often you hear this people pleasing phrase come up. So what really is people pleasing? People pleasing is in effect pleasing people and meeting their needs generally before your own. Now, people pleasing is actually a result of trauma. So it's a trauma response. If you have perhaps been in a situation where you don't feel particularly safe, and that could be physically safe, that could be emotionally safe, psychologically safe. If you just felt a little bit intimidated, a little bit threatened, so chose to make a decision that would appease the other person, that likely would have brought your safety level up. And the more you do that, the more reoccurring you're likely to engage in that people-pleasing behaviour. So for me, I've had many people in my life who are negative. Thankfully, they are all gone now. But I've had lots of people in my life who are really negative. And my adapted behaviour was that if their needs were being met, it didn't really matter about mine. They were happy, so therefore I was physically safe. I was psychologically safe. I was emotionally safe. So my incentive to engage in people-pleasing behaviours was at an all-time high because it ultimately met my main need of feeling safe. So a lot of people do struggle with boundaries around that, especially if they're quite prone to engage in people-pleasing behaviours. The second reason is people who engage in or struggle with boundaries, putting in those boundaries, quite often struggle with high intense feelings of shame and guilt. So feeling quite shameful around saying no to someone, feeling very guilty around not meeting other people's needs. Typically this comes up if we're empaths, if we're very compassionate, and if we're also driven to meeting other people's needs. What I also find is specifically if your identity is connected to meeting other people's needs. So it could be that you're a teacher, a social worker, a social care practitioner, a manager, a mother, a father, a carer, an unpaid carer. The list is endless. People who identify as being caring people really struggle where they put in that boundary and are not able to provide, in their eyes, that support to meet that other person's need. So that overwhelming feeling of shame, of guilt, of feeling that they're not good enough, of regret, thinking, oh, I wish I just said yes, I feel so bad now. That is another reason why people really struggle with boundary setting. The third one I would say is, and it's quite closely linked to the other two, manipulation. So if you are generally quite confident at putting in boundaries initially, but you're guilt tripped, you're manipulated, and this can also come from friends and family. So watch out for this. Have you ever said, oh, look, like I'm absolutely exhausted. I cannot go out tonight. I just don't feel, able to. Like I just need a night in. Oh, come on, don't be a spoil sport. Like, it would be so fun to come out. Why are you not? Oh, you're just going to ruin the night if you don't come, please. How many times have you experienced that and then been like, oh, fine? And whether you go out and enjoy your night or whether you go out and don't enjoy your night is kind of irrelevant. You'd put in that boundary initially and it was challenged through that manipulation. Once again, with other people wanting to meet their own needs over your own. So they are the typical three things that I see very commonly when people struggle to put in those boundaries. I wanted to talk about how to move forward with this, how to shift through this. And this is something that I am continuously working on because I identify with being a people pleaser. I struggle to put in boundaries because, sometimes people can manipulate me. My heart's in the right place. I'm a high empath. So I am quite an easy target to try and push people's boundaries. So it's something, as I say, I've been working on for a long, long time. And chances are, if you are listening to this episode, you're probably relating to a lot of what I'm saying right now. You're probably being like, holy hell, this is exactly what I also go through. This is how I feel. And these situations have also happened to me as well. So I wanted to provide some pointers that I have found helpful and I have also shared with some of my clients who have also found it helpful as well. So the first one is when you want to put in a boundary, but you are feeling maybe a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous around putting that in, give yourself a little bit of space. If you receive a request through written formats, whether it's a letter, an email, a text, WhatsApp, whatever it is, give yourself that little bit of breathing space rather than immediately saying yes to something that you don't want to do. Just take a few minutes to really reflect. Okay, is this something that I want to do? Is this something that I feel okay accepting? And if it is, great. If it's not, that breathing space has given you that insight and given you that first step to acknowledge that you want to put in that boundary. Particularly people who meet the three steps that I mentioned before, the three traits, quite often it's that immediacy. You feel that you need to say yes straight away. So just taking that few minutes or a few hours or a few days to give yourself that chance to really decide what you want to do. Does this feel right to you? Can be really, really helpful to just put that first foot in place around setting your boundaries. It gives you that chance to really reflect. It gives you that chance to check in with your body. Do you feel really stressed? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel that your gut's churning? generally that means that probably you do need to be putting in a boundary around that request that you've received. If it's verbal, that can be a little bit more difficult. What can be quite helpful to have is just almost a bank of phrases that you're ready to say if and when people ask you to do something that doesn't feel aligned with what you want to do or that you feel is appropriate to do. So examples of this could be, okay, let me check my calendar and I will get back to you. Another one could be, I'm not quite sure. Let me have a think and I'll get back in touch. These can feel really awkward, and it probably will, especially if it's your first time doing it, but really trust this process. It can be really effective. And more importantly, if that response that you're giving of like, just give me a little bit of time to mull things over around whether I'm going to do this or not, if the person's quite reactive and says, well, I need an answer just now, well, this is something that you just need to do, or why are you being unreasonable, that gives you even more evidence to make your decision. Don't worry if you don't manage to put in those kind of initial verbal cues, written boundaries in initially. This is practice. Like, this is a life pattern that we have all found ourselves in. So just give yourself a little bit of breathing space, try it out, test it out, and just see where you are. The second one is to reflect on basically to do a bit of an analysis here, a bit of evaluation. Is this request reasonable? So that would be number one. Is this request actually reasonable? Number two would be, what am I getting out of this request? And number three would be, what are they getting out of this request? And this isn't about being punitive. It's not about being negative. It's not about overthinking. But if you feel that you are in a place where you are regularly having to say yes to things that you don't want to do, and are really struggling with those boundary setting, and feel that you're maybe being taken advantage of by, one person or people in your life, those three things can be really helpful just to check in with. The third one I wanted to cover was really your safety. So we have covered a bit around physical safety, emotional safety. What I would like for you to just gently explore, if you are regularly feeling unsafe, whether it's physical or psychological, really recognizing that. Does that mean that there's a power imbalance within whatever relationship it is that you're in? Whether it's an intimate one, whether it's a relationship in the workplace, whether it's with a family member or a friend. If you feel that you're having to say yes to things that you don't feel comfortable doing, or saying yes to things that don't feel aligned to you, or putting yourself out and you're getting a lot of resistance when you are putting in that boundary, really checking in with yourself and reflecting around your safety aspect. Because your safety is the most important thing in this whole conversation about boundaries. Like, I can't stress it enough. If you're in a domestic abusive relationship, absolutely don't start saying no to your partner and putting in boundaries. You are your own expert, and you know what is right for you and what feels right for yourself and your situation, and what's going to support your safety and what's going to aggravate and put you more at risk. So really making sure that this is really personalized to you. But if you are really reflecting on your safety, whether it's physical or psychological, make sure that you do really reflect with that and reach out for the support if you feel it's something that you would like to do and would like to be empowered, to do. because you are deserving of that support. And, you know, I would love to offer lots of different advice, but I do feel that if there is continuous concerns around your safety, you will know better than anyone when it's appropriate, if at all, to put in those boundaries, and you will feel ready and sort of be aware of when, if any, it's time to reach out for support. So I just wanted to put in that last side note, just because I don't want to do this as a general sweeping statement of you know, how every single person in the whole entire world should work with boundaries. There's always exceptions, and that's the same as all of my episodes. You know, take what you feel is applicable. You know, this is not prescriptive, this is not specific guidance. You know, this is general advice that I have found helpful, that my clients have found helpful. And if you find it helpful and if you want to do this as well, absolutely do it. My coaching is all around being person-centered, and as a podcaster, I can't be as person-centered as what I'd love to be, because I'm not meeting my listeners. I'm not speaking to every single person individually. I'm speaking to everyone as a whole. So really making sure that you're tapping into what feels right for you is really, really important. I finally wanted to just end this episode on a little bit of aftercare after you consider putting in those boundaries. Really checking in with yourself. Are you struggling with the fact that you've not engaged in that people-pleasing behaviour that feels really familiar to you? Are you feeling really shameful and really guilty? You know, does it feel really abnormal to do that, to have put that boundary in place? Have you been manipulated and have eventually changed your mind because your friend wouldn't stop going on about how much they wanted to go to the pub with you? Whatever has happened after you've attempted to put in a boundary, see it as a learning curve. Check in with what feels right for you, what didn't feel right for you, what worked, what didn't work, and really giving yourself that time to self-reflect and giving yourself that time to really engage in that self-care. Because, you know, these are, as I said, patterns that we have likely been engaging in for years, for decades. So this is not a one-time fix. So really celebrating the fact that you're listening to this episode, that you're feeling empowered to put in those boundaries, and that you're really giving yourself that permission to really put yourself first. And putting yourself first doesn't mean that you're having to put lots of people second all of the time, but it's that whole notion of you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, you have to look after yourself before you look after other people. So I would love to hear any stories around how you have found putting in boundaries. If you've got any advice for my listeners, for me, I love learning. I love hearing different perspectives. So please get in touch, and I would love to do an update of this episode with any content, any feedback that people have around what's worked, what's not, or any alternative suggestions that people have around putting in boundaries in their everyday personal life and work life. Thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to chat to you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Turning Moments into Movements. Why not check out coaching opportunities with me so you can really begin to enhance your moments into huge movements and begin to live the life you never thought possible. Details are in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, leave a review and share this episode. Remember to also follow me on social media platforms through my handle Happyluya, where you will receive additional daily content. And finally, make sure you join us next week for more tips on how you can turn your small moments into life-changing movements.